Welcome to this explainer. Today, we are going to completely shatter everything you thought you knew about the concept of hospitality. We're exploring a life-altering conviction, a radically different, ancient paradigm that comes right out of the biblical texts. Seriously, we are going to move way past our modern ideas of passing hors d'oeuvres and having perfectly matching napkins. So let's dive right into this. To kick things off, let's set a baseline for what true hospitality actually looks like, with a gripping modern-day story. Picture this. It's 2005, during Operation Red Wings. Navy SEAL Marcus Luttrell is the sole survivor of a massive firefight in the mountains of Afghanistan. He's badly wounded, and he gets found by a Pashtun villager named Mohammed Galab. Galab took Luttrell back to his village, invoking this ancient 2,000-year-old code called Pashtunwali. Now, one of the core pillars of his code is the absolute obligation of asylum. When the Taliban showed up demanding the American, the village flat out refused. They risked their own lives, their families, and their entire village, all because their code dictated that a stranger in need is theirs to protect. You see, true hospitality isn't just a polite social grace. It's literally a life-or-death conviction. So let's completely deconstruct our modern definitions. When we hear the word hospitality today, we almost immediately picture a spotlessly clean house and an impressive multi-course meal, right? But let's look at the original Greek word used in the New Testament, philoxenia. It's actually made up of two words, philos, meaning love, which you probably recognize from Philadelphia, the city of brotherly love, and xenos, which means stranger, foreigner, or outsider. So the literal, biblical definition of hospitality isn't about hosting your best friends on a Friday night. It translates directly to the love of the stranger. It's the active pursuit of the outsider. To really drive this home, consider this brilliant contrast. We are all super familiar with the term xenophobia, the fear of the foreigner or the fear of the other. Notice how it shares that exact same root word, xenos, but it embodies the complete opposite spirit. Think about this for a second. When people interact with us, which of these two exact opposites do they actually experience? Do they feel a fear and avoidance of the outsider, or do they feel a radical, welcoming love? Only one of these words should describe a believer, and I can tell you for sure it isn't the one ending in phobia. Here is the crucial turning point. We have to distinguish between what our aesthetic-driven culture calls entertaining and true biblical hospitality, because they are fundamentally completely different things. Entertaining is ultimately all about you. It's focused on performance, right? Impressing your guests with the food, the lighting, the ambiance. It communicates, hey, you are my guest. Biblical hospitality, on the other hand, is entirely about the other person. The focus is purely on welcome, making someone feel seen, valued, and like they truly belong. Think of that one neighbor or friend who never knocks, but just walks right through the back door and grabs a coffee mug from the cupboard. Nobody minds because they aren't treated as a guest, they are treated as family. True hospitality communicates, you are mine. And that brings us to a specific, fascinating phrase found in Romans chapter 12, verse 13. It commands believers to be given to hospitality. But the original Greek word underneath that phrase is dioko. And man, this brilliantly illustrates the intensity of the command. Dioko means to pursue, to chase down, to aggressively go after. It's actually a word used elsewhere in ancient texts to describe the active pursuit of a fugitive. So you can't just sit around waiting for the doorbell to ring or for an opportunity to conveniently fall into your lap. Practicing hospitality means you have to be the one initiating. You literally have to aggressively pursue welcoming others. Now you might be asking, why on earth is this aggressive pursuit required? We don't practice this just to be polite or socially adept. We do it because of our own spiritual history. If we draw from Ephesians chapter 2, we see that before encountering Christ, you were the xenos. You were the ultimate stranger and outsider. You had no hope and absolutely no seat at the table. God didn't wait for you to clean yourself up before he invited you in. To really understand God's radical hospitality, just look at the famous parable of the prodigal son in Luke 15. The younger son has squandered his entire inheritance, and he's walking home in total disgrace, just hoping maybe he can get a job as a servant. But look at the father's reaction. In ancient Near Eastern culture, a wealthy older man did not run. It was culturally humiliating, entirely undignified. Yet what does the father do? He hitches up his heavy robes and just sprints down the road to mate his broken son. He doesn't demand an apology first. He offers a robe, a ring, and full immediate sonship. This undignified sprint of grace is the ultimate standard for how we are meant to receive others. Just let that theological truth sink in for a moment. Who ran toward you before you deserved it? This completely shifts the standard for hospitality. The benchmark is no longer Southern charm, Emily Post's rules of etiquette, or having a Pinterest-perfect dining room. The benchmark is the cross of Christ and the grace of a sprinting Father. If that is how you were received, it dictates exactly how you must receive the stranger. Okay, so practically speaking, how do we put this into action? Well, we can find an amazing historical pattern right in Genesis 18. Abraham sees 3 strangers approaching his tent in the blazing heat of the day, and his reaction breaks down into 4 really costly movements. First, urgency. Abraham ran to meet them. There's that defiance of cultural norms for an elder again. Second, humility. He bowed down to the ground, lowering himself to honor these wandering strangers. Third, sacrifice. He didn't just offer whatever leftovers he had, he commanded that his very best flour and choice livestock be prepared. And fourth, presence. He didn't just serve the food and awkwardly back out of the room, he actually stood by them while they ate. There's also this absolutely fascinating linguistic connection when it comes to our modern institutions. The Latin root word hospice simultaneously means both host and guest. From this single tiny root, we get words like hotel, hostel, hospitality, and notably, hospital. Think about how a hospital operates for a second. Its doors open to the sick, the broken, and the injured, completely regardless of what the patient can offer in return. Nobody standing at the emergency room doors asks you for a favor before they agree to treat you. That is exactly what a believer's home should be, a place of total, unconditional welcome. Jesus takes this concept and further challenges our standard social norms in Luke chapter 14. He's at a dinner party filled with people who basically viewed hosting as a strict social exchange. And he completely shatters this idea of reciprocity. He tells them, look, stop inviting your rich friends and family who are just going to invite you back next week. Instead, he says to invite the poor, the lame, and the blind, precisely because they cannot repay the favor. Kingdom hospitality means intentionally reaching outside your comfortable social bubble to welcome those who have absolutely nothing to offer you in return. And this brilliantly illustrates the immense, totally practical power of simply opening a door. Just look at the story of a woman named Lydia in Acts chapter 16. She was a merchant in the city of Philippi. She heard the gospel, she believed, and her immediate, instinctual response was to invite the Apostle Paul and his companions to stay at her house. This seemingly small act of opening her home established the base of operations for the very first Christian community on the European continent. Think about that. The European church wasn't born in a massive stadium. It was born in a woman's living room because she offered immediate hospitality. Now, I know what some of you are thinking, but what if my house isn't perfect? What if it's a mess? If you feel the pressure of having an Instagram-ready home, consider the contrast between 2 famous biblical sisters, Martha and Mary. When Jesus visited, Martha was totally stressed out, managing the event, and focused entirely on the performance of hosting. Mary, however, just sat with Jesus, focused entirely on his presence. Remember, true hospitality is a posture, not a production. The person sitting across from you at your kitchen table matters vastly more than what is actually being served on that table. Which brings us to a truly profound metaphor. The people around you right now, your neighbors, your coworkers, they're not there by accidental geography or the luck of the real estate market. They are appointed to be there. Therefore, your home is literally meant to be a kingdom embassy. Just as a foreign embassy operates as a piece of its home country planted inside another nation, a believer's home is a piece of heaven planted right in their zip code. Your address is your assignment. It's the soil where a culture of grace can be tasted by the outside world. Well, it's time to move from theory to action. Let me leave you with a deeply provocative question. Who is the Xenos, the stranger, that God has placed in your life right now? Really think about it. Name a specific face. Honestly evaluate if your posture toward them has been philolexenia or xenophobia. Then take one concrete step of welcome before this week is over. Who are you being called to run toward? Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep pursuing knowledge.